Welcome to the last step of So Delicious lesson. This time we're going to take our drawing and add color to our sweet treat. This demo I'm going to do, I'm going to add color adding watercolor and oil pastels. But you're welcome to add crayons if you want or markers. I'm also going to do a demonstration with color pencils, so there'll be 2 short videos. I'm using my phone with the picture on it as a guide to kind of get an idea of like the colors and kind of the layout of how the shadow is going to look for this. I'm also going to kind of think about a color scheme. So I have my sketchbook here, and I have a sketchbook little swatch page where I'm going to use that to make little swatches of oil pastel as well as watercolor. Okay, and what's great in the color scheme I decided on is going to be more primary colors, but it's going to be tints of watercolor, so they're going to look more pastel, like, if you will. And that kind of adds to the sprinkles that are on my cupcake. So I'm going to do the whole cupcake in that color scheme, even the background. All right, so if you're using watercolors, you're going to make sure that you take some water and you wet all your colors first with some clean water. It's nice to have more than one container of water, so you have one for mixing and one for cleaning, and you'll need a paper towel. All right. So I'm going to let those sit for a second and let the water get inside of the paint pigment. And I'm going to start with outlining and thinking about where I want to add some of the color schemes. So the paper is a white paper, but I'm going to use a gray to kind of outline the edges of it, as well as a nice peachy color to give that pop. Okay, so let's see. I'll start out with making the gray, and I'll make, because it was really important for these lines to kind of pop up and show, so I didn't want to lose those doing watercolor. This technique I'm using is called wax resist or oil resist, because we're using the oil and to push away from the watercolor when it touches the paper. You can also see this technique in your sketchbook, because this is what we used back when we did watercolor in our earlier in the year. Okay, so I'm back. I outlined the cupcake paper with the gray. I added a little oil pastel of brown for the cake, and I outlined the frosting a little bit just to make it have a little pop. And I want to make sure it's really colorful. So I'm not going to worry about too much with sticking with the original colors, but I want to kind of make the watercolors bright and light. So I'm actually going to start a little bit opposite than normal. I'm going to take my shadow, and I'm going to start there. So I took a little black, and I'm going to add a little bit of blue, because that's my color scheme, our primary colors. I just want to make the shadow a little bluish color. Okay, so that looks like a nice midnight blue. I'm going to add a little bit of water to my brush, and I'm going to start adding in the shadow part first. So I wanted that to be a nice darker color, but not quite black, because I wanted to have a little bit of color. A nice flat wash. Alright, so now that I have that laid down, I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow next, and I'm going to make a very light wash with the yellow. And that's actually going to be what I make my cupcake paper. I want it to be a little brighter than just the white paper in my phone. So I'm going to make it a light watery yellow wash. Let's try that out. That looks good. Okay, let's test it out. There we go. So I'm always testing on the paper first, just to get a better feel of what the value of the color is going to be. I'm going to take my brush and paint in those areas. Now if you don't have paint, there's markers. The markers would look really good if I just did this in watercolor and then I outlined it with a marker to make it pop out. That would have been nice. I just thought I'd give it a shot and try something different this time than I usually do. And I would try to paint with a little bit of more of an oil resist. Okay, so I'm going to finish painting up the yellow here. And you can see what's really nice is that as it kind of goes past the oil pastel, it pushes it aside onto the paper next to it, but it's also not letting it bleed. I'm going to let my shadow dry a little bit. I'm going to go back over with it with some more paint because I'm going to do this in layers so it's nice and thick. I'm going to finish adding the thinning wash to my cupcake paper, making it yellow. And then when we come back, we're going to add some of the star shape pattern and finish it up. All right, so I added the color to the cupcake paper, and I'm just going to take my paintbrush here and kind of rub it a little bit in some areas that I thought it got a little darker than I wanted. I'm just going to dab it, and you can see that kind of brings out some of the value a little bit, makes it a lighter value. If you make a mistake with watercolor, you can do this too. Don't rub, just dab. You're not trying to massage the paint pigment into the paper. You're just kind of dabbing it and letting it dry. So as that's drying, I'm going to take my blue oil pastel and I'm going to make like a little cool star shape. So just to get an idea of what I'm talking about, like you might be, I'll just use this as an example. If I had the word pop or pow, you might remember seeing like something like this in Batman or old cartoons where they had like this little star shape. I'm going to make that kind of shape, but I'm going to have it kind of highlighting the background of my cupcake a little bit. This is pop art, by the way, so I can get as creative and a little more expressive with it, because the more it looks like an advert or something that you would see in our consuming culture, the more pop art it is. So I'm going to get in here and maybe just make a couple of the, and I'm going to make it really heavy and dark. So it might mean me going over a couple times after I outline it the first time. I don't recommend you guys free drawing it like this. I recommend you guys doing it with a pencil first to kind of go over it. I'm going to do it again. But before I do that, I'm going to kind of start talking about the sprinkles before I finish it up. I'm going to take my paint with a really thin brush, and I'm going to do a little dry painting. If I had a white pastel, I would make this all white so none of the colors could bleed into it. But you can take your thin paintbrush and do a dry brush wet paint technique. Practice here where you get really details. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to fill in all the little candies with many different rainbow colors of primaries. So it'll be pink, water it down to make a pink, yellow, blue. And I'm just going to kind of go in here and make a variety of different kind of shapes very gently, tapping and doing the brush. Dry brush, wet paint. Always testing it out on the paper first. So we're on a roll here. We're almost done. Okay, we're back. So while I was on pause, I took some time and filled it up the rest of the way. I have to say I was really excited about the oil pastel with the watercolor, but thinking back, I might have got a little carried away with the oil pastel. And I really like a couple things that are going on here, like with the cupcake paper and with the sprinkles, but I think I got too carried away with the diamond or the POW sign. Have fun with it. It should be bright and colorful. What I did when I was on break is I did a wash of red and some blue here and kind of filled in the shadow a little bit more. What I will do now is I'll let this dry. I can take it out and put it on a different background that kind of adds to the pop art style. So I think I'm going to do that. So this is a good learning lesson of like when you artistically kind of go with the flow and then you have to... Okay, so after my oil pastel and watercolor design, I decided that that wasn't really the direction I wanted to go, and I really didn't like it. The best part about art is that when you make a mistake, it gives you the opportunity to reevaluate things and kind of redo it. And that is part of the process. So I cut out the cupcake design because I thought that was still very successful and interesting. And I thought about the background a little bit, and I thought Boy, these little candy shapes are really important, and they kind of add that kind of fun, a candy flower background where my cupcake would sit on, one big one, and then I'd have many little ones around it. And sticking with my color scheme of primary colors, since the cupcake paper is yellow, I chose two markers. One's a little more pink, because remember, pink is a tint of red. It's white and red, so that works. And I picked like this more bold color blue marker, just to kind of get people a mixture of different materials that you can use on this project to still make it bright, bold, and vibrant and intense, and still have a very successful looking mixed media pop art image. So some of the best techniques for markers is always testing your marker first. So my marker has two edges. One's a chiseled edge and another one's more like a paintbrush marker tip. I always like to try my markers first by testing them out on the paper. And when you're coloring, you're going to want to do this too, like slow, even, not back and forth rush, but slow, even kind of strokes on the paper. So you get that nice, even marking. With the fine tip, something like this with the Sharpie, you can use it as on the side to do more of a flatter coloring in, or you can use the tip to do the little more detailed kind of coloring in thing. Alright, so now that I tested out my markers and I saw that they work, I'm going to go to my background. So last time I kind of impromptu'd my background, kind of hoping that it would work out. Well, it didn't work out, which means that pre-planning and kind of having an idea is the best way to go. So what my plan is I'm going to make the background solid pink and all these little flowers blue. So I'm going to go around first and color in the edges. Since the pink is the lightest color, or this kind of reddish pink color, I'm going to go around first with the marker, making nice even strokes. And you might even use like a whole marker completely up on this project, because nice even strokes are really going to make a difference. And then once I go all the way around, I'm going to come over with the chiseled edge. I'm going to go in one direction, and it's all going to be coming out from the flower, so it has like this motion or this kind of visual movement of it going in or popping out. So taking your time and really focusing on making sure that it goes all in one direction is going to pay off for your craftsmanship. So stay tuned. I'm going to keep coloring it in, and then when it's all said and done, I'll glue this part in, and then I'll take a black marker and just do a little bit of shadow just to have a little pop to it. Make it look like it's coming out or it's placed on the surface. So stay tuned for this part, and I can't wait to share what this next idea is. I'm feeling like this one's going to be more successful. Okay, so as you can see, this one turned out a lot better than my first background, and it's all because of pre-planning. So pre-planning is a must. So think about your background before you just throw it together. Pop art needs to have a really colorful, vibrant, decorative background. Even if you fill it up, your design, your product all the way to the edge of the page, that's filling up the page. It's making it an active background, you know, like making it colorful and no empty spaces if possible. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little shadow here as I outline my cupcake. Just a little shadow right there. And I'm going to call it done, knowing that, hey, I did it. I had a little trouble in the beginning, but as art is a process, I'm learned that you can't just, you know, take shortcuts, that you gotta do the steps and pre-plan. So here I am. I have my pop art cupcake done. It's looking beautiful. All it needs is my signature. I can't wait to see yours.